story time about how I became obsessed with my doctor and faked a heart attack just to see him. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I'm 26 years old and desperate for a husband. I come from a very antiquated family. My parents think I'm already an old maid because I haven't had kids, and that no man will ever want me because I'm too old. For the past 4 years, I've been on a mission to find a husband. I signed up to a bunch of dating apps. I went on so many dates, but still never found anyone I was compatible with, or anyone that wanted to marry me for that matter. Last year, we had a COVID scare in my family and we all went to get tested. I started feeling a little bit sick, so I went to a doctor. This doctor, let me tell you, when he walked into the room, I nearly fainted. He was the most gorgeous man I'd ever seen in my life. He was also so nice because obviously he was my doctor, but he seemed so caring. I quickly became infatuated with him and kept making up excuses to have to go see him. I even came up with this plan that I was going to get him to fall in love with me. I told my mom and she ended up telling my dad and they thought I was completely crazy. I stalked the doctor on social media and found out that he wasn't married. He did have a girlfriend though, but this was no problem for me. I would do my makeup and dress up really nice just to go see him. But this backfired on me. He started to think that I was a hypochondriac and that I was making up all my symptoms. Part 2 of how I became obsessed with my doctor and even faked a heart attack just to see him. Disclaimers are not my story time. That's when he told me that I was a hypochondriac and that I was probably just imagining/faking all my symptoms. I pretended to act outraged and I said absolutely not. He told me I just needed to relax. But this is the best part. He complimented me on my hair, and that's when I convinced myself that he was in love with me. From that day on, I would follow him everywhere. Anytime he would go to buy coffee, I would end up being there, and we would just casually bump into each other. I thought he wasn't suspecting anything until one day I get home and my parents sit me down to tell me that the doctor noticed that I had been following him everywhere. And he also asked them to find me a new doctor, and that he could no longer see me. I was devastated. I felt like he had broken up with me. My parents forbade me from going near his office, but this didn't stop me. I decided to go straight to his house and confess my feelings. As soon as he opened the door, I told him that I loved him and that I just wanted to have his children. He did not take this very well. He told me to leave. When I got home, my parents didn't let me out of the house for a few days. So I did what I had to do. I faked a heart attack and insisted that the only doctor I wanted to see me was him. My parents had no choice but to take me to him. That's when he told my parents that I had made everything up and that I did not have a heart attack. It's been almost a year and I'm still trying to find ways to get back into his life. I'm running out of excuses. Can you guys help me think of some? Yes, I know this is a little bit crazy, but I know that he could fall in love with me and we would be very happy. What do you think I should do?
I'm pregnant and being investigated by the Department of Child Services.
Oh, man.
Hello, I'm a 29-year-old, happily married. My husband and I are college educated, have respectable, stable jobs, own a home in a nice neighborhood. We're basically as prepared as anyone can be to start a family. I'm almost 9 months pregnant with our first child. The problem is that 11 years ago, when my husband was a freshman in college, he was arrested for possession of marijuana. He pled guilty and did his time in probation without a problem, passing every drug test along the way. He has not touched any other illegal substance since, and we rarely even drink, and haven't at all in over a year. I have no criminal record. It was a stupid mistake he made as a foolish 18-year-old, and he's worked hard to put it behind him. Someone has apparently contacted Child Services in our area. This accusation is being taken very seriously because of my husband's record. We have been as cooperative as could be with our caseworker. We've been interviewed, our home has been examined, and she found nothing remotely serious or incriminating. We have both taken tests and passed. Our caseworker says everything looks just fine so far. Unfortunately, she also says that there's still the possibility that our child could be taken from us in the labor and delivery ward. I was devastated and horrified to hear that. When I asked why, she said it was, quote, not up to her, and we'll have to wait and see, which made absolutely no sense to me. I feel like there's something she isn't telling me, but I have no experience with DCS and I'm not aware of anything we could have possibly done wrong. I'm scared and confused. Do I need a lawyer? Thanks for reading and thanks in advance for your help. There's an update.
Okay.
Do you want me to just read the update first?
It sounds like you want to.
Say your comments, what you're thinking right away.
I don't have a comment. I think I have a question. I'm curious as to who reported that.
Very fishy. Very fishy, right?
Yeah.
I'll read the top comment on the post.
Okay.
And then just do the update.
Yeah.
And then talk about it, because that's where it gets weird.
Okay.
I am a former Indiana CPS investigator/assessor. Something here is not making any sense at all, unless the law has changed greatly in the last few years when I left the department. As of this moment, you are pregnant, correct? You don't have any children? They are investigating the fetus? Someone replies, former CPS worker here too. Agree with you. CPS does not investigate pregnant women with no current children. Something is not right. And someone goes, if people who have worked with CPS are saying something is off here, maybe it's an idea to contact CPS yourself. Not through any contact the worker you have been in contact with has given you, but by finding their number on the internet and ringing directly. Ask if the worker actually works there, for starters. I've heard a few stories of people posing as CPS maliciously.
I didn't even think of that.
Storytime on how my parents forced me into acting. I played roles that were on TV networks like Disney Channel and Nickelodeon. And I also did PBS Kids and a few other networks. As a child actor, my parents expected a lot from me. The roles that I played would pay the bills at home. When I was younger and I was acting, I didn't know that money came with it. So whenever I did act, if anything that had to do with money, my parents would handle it. And still to this day, I haven't seen that money. But anyways, so during my time of acting, my parents put me in acting classes, singing, and dancing. They really wanted me to be that triple threat. But when it came to these shows that I played in, I would never get the main character. I'd always be casted like an extra that had a few lines. When I finally got my big break, I was casted in the Hannah Montana show. But you will not believe what my parents had to do for me to get that role. Part 2 on how my parents forced me into acting. So finally, I got a major role in a Hannah Montana show. For my role, I necessarily didn't audition. My parents built up a contract and forced my signature. In order for me to play the role, there were certain things that I had to do. When it came to getting clothes, I had to make sure I bought my clothes. With the money that I made at my previous acting jobs, I had to make sure my own makeup was done, had to make sure my own hair was done, and I also had to do janitor work, as in like sweep, mop the floors. Maybe a good 2 months before the show had started, I had to get the stage set up and, the scene. 2 months of working and not really getting paid for it. The head of Disney had found out about the contract and forced to sue my parents if they had continued with it. After the whole situation, I never got the role, and I put all that work in for no compensation.
Story time about how my high school principal tried to date me after I graduated. TW, if you think this is gross, don't watch. And disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's been 10 years since this happened, but when I was in high school, I was really popular. I was in the cheerleading squad, the badminton team, the volleyball team, and drama club. All the teachers knew me and I got along with almost all the students. I never had any problems with girls or guys. My high school principal was a huge history buff, and so was I. One day I went to his office and asked him if I could start a history club. He was really impressed by this and he said yes. I started asking students if they wanted to join, and mostly it was only boys. And these were the boys that I knew had a crush on me, but I made a promise to my parents that I would focus solely on school and not boys. So that meant no boyfriends for me, and I was totally fine with that. I wasn't boy crazy or anything. I really just wanted to get into a good college and make my parents proud. After I formed the club, the principal asked me if he could sit in on some of the sessions. I said, of course. Our history club would get together every Wednesday, and he would always show up without fail. I mean, obviously, I thought that he was interested in history, and he just wanted to share this experience with us, but clearly I was wrong. After a few weeks, things were getting a little strange. When it was my turn to read, I would always notice him staring at me. And he also brought up the fact that there were only boys in the club. I explained to him that they probably just had a crush on me and that at least it was a way to get them into the club. He told me I needed to find girls because I was too much of a distraction for the boys. But the way that he said it just sounded like he was really jealous. I did my best to get girls in the club, but literally nobody wanted to join. After a few days, I realized that maybe the best thing for me was just to cancel the club. I was already in so many other clubs and I didn't want to sacrifice my grades. I basically told the guys that we weren't going to have the club anymore and they all said that was totally fine. But when I told the principal, he flipped out. He started yelling at me and told me that if I didn't keep the club going that I would never make it in life. He said I wasn't being responsible and that I was letting down the club. So then I was basically forced into continuing the club. But then things got even stranger. He started showing up to every single get together. And every time that it was over, he would ask me if he could walk me to my car. I mean, at first I thought he was just doing it so that I could be careful, I guess. But we were still on school property and I'm pretty sure nothing was gonna happen to me. That's when my principal started asking me if I was dating any boys or if I had any crushes on boys. I obviously felt very uncomfortable when he asked me this, so I simply answered no. Then he told me that I could be honest with him. That's when I told him that I made my parents a promise because I was so close to graduating high school and avoid any distractions like boys. That's when he said that I was an amazing woman and that he wished more of the female students were like me. I quickly got in my car and went home. By the way, I was 2 months away from graduating from high school. Now this is when things start to get really, really weird. I started seeing him around everywhere in school. Our school is pretty big, but I kept bumping into him everywhere. Every time I would see him, he would be like, "Ho ho, are you stalking me?" I would laugh it off and continue walking. One day after history club, he asked me to come to his office with him. He said that he had a surprise for me. He took me to his office and gave me a book on history. I thanked him and tried to leave as quickly as possible, but then he said, "Don't you like it?" So I stood there having to pretend that I was happy that he gave me this book, when in actuality, it made me really uncomfortable. That's when he said that he had seen me in the library reading a book on World War II, and that he just wanted to surprise me with the same book. So this was already letting me know two things. Number one, he's watching me around school and at the library, and number two, I'm not noticing when he's watching me. I was so creeped out, but I managed to keep my cool. I said thank you again and basically ran away. For the rest of that week, I tried to avoid him as much as I could. I didn't go anywhere near his office, and I avoided the library, which was one of my favorite places in the school. At this point, graduation was only a week away. I was totally wrapped up in my studies that I actually forgot about the principal. Until one day I get a friend request from him on Facebook. At first I thought it was weird, but then I accepted because I figured, well, I'm graduating, so I'm not really going to be seeing him anymore. 5 minutes after I accepted his friend request, I get this really long message from him praising me, saying all these great things about me. I didn't know how to respond, so I simply said thanks. Finally, the day of graduation came and I was forced to see him face to face. That's when he told me that he actually had another gift for me. That's when he hands me an envelope with a blank check. He had the biggest smile on his face. I look at it and tell him that I simply cannot accept it. That's when he gets really angry, snatches the check from me, and tells me that he'll see me later. After the graduation ceremony, I was so happy and I was with my family. That's when he walks up behind me and asks me to keep the check. My family is watching this whole thing go down, by the way. I look at him and say thank you, but no. He then introduces himself to my family. But of course, he doesn't bring up the whole check thing. We all say goodbye and my family and I go have dinner. That very night, he sends me a message on Facebook again, saying that he shouldn't have given me the check. And he felt like he had crossed the line. I actually felt really bad, so I replied asking him to not feel bad. A week later, I get a text message from him. He said that he took the liberty of looking up my phone number and that he actually really wanted to speak to me. He asked if we could meet up for a coffee, and I said yes, unfortunately. We meet up at the coffee shop, and as soon as we sit down, he starts to confess his feelings for me. He said that I was basically his dream girl and that all he wanted was a wife like me. And he also asked me if I would ever consider dating him. I was actually too stunned to speak. As soon as he realized I wasn't saying yes, he asked me not to say anything, got up and left. I ran home and told my parents everything. My parents were really angry. My dad went straight to the cops. The cops told my dad that they had complaints from other students. He apparently did the same thing to them and asked them out once they graduated. And guess what? One of them said yes. The cops even investigated him after.
I'm so frustrated, it's not even funny. Like, I've never been this mad at my dad in my life. So for my birthday, my boyfriend got me tickets to go to Las Vegas for a week, and I'm so excited. We leave in 2 days, this Friday. And my dad knew about this trip. He knew what day it was. He knew everything about this trip. He's known about this trip for months. Well, he just did something really selfish, and I'm like so mad. 3 days before I'm about to go on vacation, my dad went over to his friend's house, who he knows is sick. But he didn't care. He still went over to his friend's house, didn't tell me he was going to his friend's house, who's sick, and then came back home, gave me a hug, we ate dinner together, and then today he came home early from work. I was like, why are you home early? And he was like, oh, I'm not feeling good. I've been throwing up all day. And I'm like, so why are you feeling sick? He then tells me it's because he went over to his friend's house yesterday who was sick and didn't tell me that he was sick. So now I'm praying that I don't get whatever he has, because if I get sick, I can't go on vacation. And I've been looking forward to this for a week. And my boyfriend put a lot of money into these plane tickets. And if I get sick and I can't go, bye-bye goes the money and bye-bye goes my vacation. And I'm really irritated also because my dad goes on vacations all the time. This man is always on vacation. He probably goes like 20 times a year. And every time before he goes on vacation, he always makes sure that I do not hang out with anybody sick. He makes sure I'm healthy, yada yada, because he doesn't want me to get him sick for his trip, because that would just be selfish if I got him sick. But the one time I'm going on vacation, he doesn't even think about, and he might get me sick now. Do you see the selfishness? I'm so irritated that he couldn't wait 2 days to go see his friend so that I was already in Vegas. But now I might get sick and I might not be able to go on my vacation. But oh God, if I did that to him, if I got him sick before his vacation, end of the world. End of the world. I would be grounded. I mean, there's been multiple times where it would be like a week before he was going on vacation, and like one of my friends would have a cold, and I wouldn't be allowed to see them because he didn't want to get sick. But when roles are reversed, it doesn't matter. So I'm like so irritated. Like, I'm smiling. I'm just like so irritated. Like, where's the common sense to not go to your friend's house who you know is sick before your daughter leaves for Vegas? Because if I can't go because I get sick, he's paying my boyfriend back for the plane ticket, and he's buying us new ones. I don't care. It was selfish, and you're gonna have to pay for it.
My 47 female life is destroyed, and I am beyond devastated. My husband, 34 male, is having an affair with my son. A few months ago, I noticed a change in my husband. He stopped having sex, which was very odd for us. He also was more distant with affection and very secretive with his phone. And when I checked it, he had changed his passcode. So I checked his laptop, and the same thing, change in password. We had always shared all that information, even when we changed it, so it didn't feel right. I started to feel like he was having an affair, and a coworker agreed that his actions seemed odd. She suggested I hide a camera at home, especially as I travel for work. After a lot of internal debate, I decided to do as she said, and bought a camera that I could watch through my phone as I prepared for a short business trip. I hid it in our living room at an angle that covered most of the room, but mainly aimed at the top of the door so I could see if anyone picked him up or came in with him. When I checked it a few hours ago, I was horrified and devastated to see my husband kissing my son. I fucked up by insulting the one-legged girl I'm interested in. So, in these corona times, I'm bored out of my mind, so I downloaded a dating app. I find a girl I'm really into, and we connect on many things. She loves Star Wars, some games, and she even likes football, although she completely chose the wrong team to support. Anyhow, I'm a bit wary she might be a catfish, because she's hot as hell. At least a 10, maybe more, while I'm a 5 on my best days. There are a lot of catfish on the site, so I asked her for a picture of her. She's understanding, and we exchanged some pics. Nothing special. On one of the pics, I spot a prosthetic leg.
My fiancé wants his father to check my hymen tomorrow night before I get married. My fiancé proposed to me about 8 months ago. We decided on having a relatively small wedding, which is in 2 days. Everything was going great. He seems absolutely perfect and we're very much in love. I'm a virgin and so is he. He wanted to save it for marriage and I wasn't fussed, so I agreed to saving it. He has told me earlier that in his family, the father checks the virginity of the bride the night before the wedding. I laughed this off as it seriously sounds like a massive joke. No, turns out he was dead serious. He wants me the night before to open my legs up in a small ceremony type thing so his dad can check me while him, his brothers, and uncle watch so they know that I'm pure. I told him fat chance I was going to do that and he was begging me to go through with it and how important it is for him. He said he knew it was slightly embarrassing for me, but his mom did it and it will prove how much I love him and that I have nothing to hide anyway as I'm still a virgin. I left and he was crying. It was very dramatic, to be honest. I want to call off the whole wedding because of this and never talk to him again. However, at the same time, it's only one thing, and other than that, we're genuinely perfect for each other and I don't want to spend the rest of my life with anyone else, and it's very important to him and his family. What the frick frack do I do? I'm currently at my friend's house and I might stay here for the night. Tomorrow will be our last day as an unmarried couple and I'm straight up panicking. I've been dating my girlfriend for 7 months. She's amazing and we're super compatible in a lot of ways. She's an outspoken vegan and she made it very clear from the start of our relationship that it was important to her any potential partner had the same cruelty-free values. Me, already being a pescatarian, had little difficulty transitioning to a fully plant-based diet. My girlfriend was proud of me for going cruelty-free and everything seemed well. Then there's my cat Mittens. I've had her for 3 years and I adore her. She's such a sweet and cuddly cat. However, my girlfriend was always a little apprehensive around her and she blamed it on not growing up around cats. After a while, we sort of made an agreement to mostly hang out at her apartment instead of mine, so Mittens never really came up again in the conversation. Fast forward through all the quarantine stuff. My girlfriend and I have spent a lot of time together during this pandemic and started talking about moving our relationship to the next level. We began seriously looking at either buying a new apartment together or having one of us move in with the other. However, after a lot of talking and planning, my girlfriend sat me down and dropped a bombshell on me. She said that with this next phase of our relationship, she didn't see a future with me unless I was willing to give away Mittens. She said that she believed that owning a cat is unconscionable for vegans because they hunt mice and eat meat, and because the very act of owning a pet is a violation of vegan principles. I was stunned. I told her that I was absolutely not willing to give up Mittens and she had no choice but to eat meat, so I was reducing harm as much as possible by buying the reputable brands of cat food. Plenty of vegans own cats and think along the same lines. My girlfriend got mad and said, "How much flesh does your cat eat? How many animals died to make all that food? Would you be okay with that being human flesh?" I got mad and told my girlfriend I would have really appreciated her telling me about her cat opinions before we got serious. She went on and on about cats killing animals. Then I went home and snuggled with Mittens. Although the mood soured a bit when my GF sent me a link to the Reddit thread advocating for the extinction of domestic cats. It pains me to think that an otherwise wonderful relationship could be ended because of a difference in ideology. I don't even really understand where my girlfriend is coming from because, like I said, a lot of vegans own cats. Now granted, cat ownership can be a controversial topic in the vegan circles and I probably would not have gotten a cat if I had been vegan at the time. But I have Mittens now and she deserves to eat. I've talked to some of my vegan and vegetarian friends and they all think that my girlfriend has lost her mind. Some have suggested it's not about Mittens and my girlfriend just wants an excuse to end it. They probably don't understand why I haven't broken up yet, but I care about my girlfriend so much. I'd hate for this bizarre curveball to be the end of a beautiful thing. Where do I even go from here? I had a table today with a couple and the husband was introducing his baby mama to his family. He was military and I guess he's been busy on his time away. The couple also had a brand new baby that they were showing off. Nice folks. They were with the dude's mom, sister, and aunt. They ordered a baked chicken nacho to start, which I promptly put in. Mind you, I was captain on a party of 25 and finishing them up and the host told them they may have a few minute wait at the table. They were cool at first. Once the food came out, the complaints started. I checked on them multiple times in passing and nobody asked for anything. They, of freaking course, asked for waters for the table and also each had a beer or mocktail. Nobody asked for refills or to order another. They didn't have a single auto refill drink, but okay, maybe I wasn't being super attentive. Anyway, the mom goes to the front and has a hissy fit and my manager deals with her, but she pulls me aside to say that she was watching me and that she knows I did my best, even if the food was kind of late behind our party of 25 regulars. She's gonna comp the cheesecake slices and I shouldn't worry about them. I go and drop the discounted check and I hear the Beyonce say, "I'm gonna order cheesecake for all of us and get the whole bill taken care of." The sister and mom both cringe visibly and make eye contact contact with me. I drop the free $50 of cheesecake and bring the fussy toddler a free milk just to show that I care. The aunt stares at the check and then violently snatches it. I watch the new baby mama die internally. I can only imagine she's been dealing with this effing witch for hours or days and is rapidly approaching her limit. She's dressed like a crunchy hippie mom and is super sweet whenever I come back to the table. She isn't a problem and I imagine she's served before. You'll see why. Not 5 minutes after the $40 check is dropped, my manager finds me and we go to a posy to look at the ring times and such. She wants to make sure I do my best before she sticks up for me. Everything checks out and she decides it isn't worth the trouble and comps the entire bill. They seem satisfied and leave. Finally. On the way out, they called me slow and shiftless and say I should work somewhere else. I laughed in response because F them and I wished them a lovely evening. I knew I wasn't going to get tipped and just started to bust the table once they were out of view. I found a 20 by where the sister was sitting and a crisp 50 in the middle of the table. I'm betting the dude left that. As I finish up, I see the baby mama speaking to the manager who gestures toward me and I walk over. She smashes a crumbled 100 into my hand and whispers, "I'm so sorry, I know you did your best with them." Not gonna lie y'all, I almost cried. I simply nodded and said thanks so much and that I hope to see her and her baby again. She thanked me again and walked off. I imagine the aunt thinks that she did something by scoring free food for everyone, but all she did was alienate her nephew and her sister further. Me and 4 other girls have been best friends since middle school and we're all 17. When we were freshmen, we got matching necklaces that say besties for the resties on them. One of us will say besties and the others will respond for the resties. One of my best friends is named Alexa. She was one of the 4 and she did everything with us. A few weeks ago, out of the blue, she decided she wants to be called Alex and to be a guy now. And also to use he, him pronouns. They're basically a totally different person now. I feel like my best friend has died. None of us even recognize this new person and all of us are kind of in mourning. We've stopped hanging out with them pretty much. It's not the same now. It's really depressing. Today, they tried to get the other 4 of us to do the same. They kept saying besties over and over, trying to get us to do the response, but no one was doing it and it was just a tense, depressing silence. Then they started crying and it made me want to cry. I feel like my best friend is dead and I know the others are very upset too. We won't ever get our friend back. Alexa is dead. We can't go shopping together, can't watch the same movies now, can't have sleepovers, can't get our nails done, can't do each other's hair, can't bake cupcakes now. There's literally nothing left to do together that wouldn't be incredibly uncomfortable. Am I the asshole for being unable to complete the phrase? My boyfriend and I have a 4-year-old son and recently bought a house in July. Less than a month after moving in, his mother asked if she could move in and we said yes. She's married, but the relationship is, well, rather strange. Her reasoning to live with us is that her husband wouldn't bother her while staying with us because her son was there. While her and her husband lived together, she accused him of hiding cameras in their house to spy on her. I mean, going to the extent of hiding cameras in her ceiling phone chargers, water bottles, doorknobs, you name it. I've never liked this man nor trusted him. I'm currently pregnant with our second child, a baby girl due in April. Within the last 2 weeks, she has had her husband stay overnight more than once and he is now walking into our home without knocking. He welcomes himself in our house without permission from my boyfriend or myself. Given their history, the hidden cameras and physical abuse, I'm not comfortable with him being in my home or spending the night. I'm conflicted on how to tell my boyfriend's mom I don't want her husband in my home because he makes me uncomfortable and I don't trust him based on the things she's personally told me. I know she'll react angrily, but my blood boils at the sight of him in my house. Within just this last week, he actually kicked our 3-month-old lab puppy. I saw this and told him to never kick my animals regardless if they're jumping on him or not. He's a guest. This is their house. The part in all of this that makes no sense to me is that my boyfriend's mom doesn't trust her husband, always accusing him of cheating and is constantly bad-mouthing this man to me. He claims my son and unborn daughter are his grandchildren and it makes me sick. My boyfriend agreed with me at first but is now going back on it because he's afraid of his mother's reaction. I love his mom in our relationship but not her husband. What should I do? I'd like to start by saying that me and my female cousin, who's blind from birth, aren't very close, but we get along well as relatives. She's 26 and her wedding was last week. She sent me an invitation, though we don't talk much, but since I wanted a break from work, I decided to go. My favorite color is white. I love wearing white because it brings out my skin glow and makes me feel comfortable and confident. I purchased a maxi white dress, nothing fancy but goes well with my skin tone, and wore it at the wedding. There wasn't a big party with many guests, but sort of like a family dinner and a small celebration. I really thought no one would even notice that I was wearing white. My cousin and her husband didn't know because obviously no one told them. But my aunt kept giving me uncomfortable looks the entire evening, and so did my other cousin. Once I decided to leave, my aunt pulled me aside and berated me for wearing this color at her daughter's wedding. She said just because her daughter is blind doesn't mean that she's stupid and doesn't know what's going on around her. Basically saying I brought negative energy and disturbed the celebration by having guests notice and by extension, my cousin as well. She gave a lengthy lecture and asked if I hate to see her daughter happy and whether I pulled this stunt because my blind cousin got married before me. I was like, whoa, calm down, none of this is true. I just wore my favorite color and didn't do it because my cousin is blind and wouldn't notice. And married before me, I never thought of that. I argued with my aunt for trying to dictate what I wear, but she defended herself, saying that I was a guest and should have respected the bride. I left feeling very upset and exhausted from that encounter. My boyfriend said he believed I used the fact that my cousin is blind to wear white, but this didn't fly with her family. He pulled the "I told you so" line and said that I just made my family hate me with that stunt. Even though he knows that I always wear white, but he warned me that if my cousin finds out, there's going to be some issues. He suggested I get ready to apologize, but I really see no reason to apologize since I chose to wear a comfortable color that I feel confident in. Am I the asshole for wearing white to my blind cousin's wedding? Imagine you're 11 years old and walking to the bus stop in the morning when you're suddenly abducted. For the next 18 years, you're held captive by your abductors and hope that one day you'll be free. This was the reality for a young girl named JC Lee Dugard. She was taken just outside of her home in South Lake Tahoe, California on the morning of June 10th, 1991. A man approached her in his car as she crossed the street and asked for directions. Before she could even register his question, he uses a taser on her and she's paralyzed. That's when he grabs her and throws her in his car. JC's stepfather actually saw the kidnapping happen from their garage window and attempted to catch up to the car on his bicycle but was outrun. He immediately called the authorities who, with the help of the FBI, dogs, aircrafts, and hundreds of people, searched for JC, but to no avail. No one could find her and all the leads went cold. She was locked in a makeshift recording studio by convicted rapist and his wife, Philip and Nancy Garrido, in their backyard. On the first night, her abductor showers with her and handcuffs her. That night, she cries herself to sleep. Over the next 18 years, JC is completely dependent on him for every basic human need. They renamed her Alyssa, and she was repeatedly abused by Philip over the years. He would take substances and stay up for nights on end, forcing JC to fulfill his fantasies. Over time, he stops handcuffing her and starts to trust her more. When JC's 13, Philip Garrido is actually arrested by police for possession of substances and is locked up for a month. When he returns, he has an ankle monitor. Still, no one knows that he's holding JC. A year later, JC is 14 and has gained weight. She feels uncomfortable and is soon told by the Garridos that she's pregnant. She gave birth to her first daughter at the age of 14 and her second daughter at the age of 17. Both of her daughters are forced to live with her in confinement as she does her best to raise and take care of them. During this time, she writes in a journal about her feelings and wondered if her family members were ever searching for her. We used to have a beautiful bookshelf in our drawing room and it was filled with my girlfriend's books. She buys them for herself as she loves to read and I don't. Most of these books she's had since childhood. We get lots of compliments over it. She had added little potted plants, handmade photo frames with art from her favorite books and series, bookmark stands and stuff to it. Over the years, this book obsession has gone out of hand. She owns so many books. She has an Instagram page for her books. She listens to YouTubers who only talk about books. She has a lot of friends who don't really do anything but read these pretentious, fat books, unlike my girlfriend who is in law school and doing very well. She wastes money on more and more books when in my opinion she should be devoting that money to our house and relationship since it's been 3 years and we're fairly serious now. For context, we do split most of the house expenses, but she currently earns more than me because she has a really fancy internship right now. Given our respective fields, her earning more than me all through life is something I've accepted. I was worried that even after she gets a real job, she'll continue to burn all her money away instead of putting it to good use around the house. What's worse, I don't think she actually likes reading. She had a very abusive childhood and books were her coping mechanism. She doesn't live with her parents anymore though, so I don't see why she's still so attached to them. In my opinion, it's unhealthy. I'm not saying that she should be over it or anything, but her obsession with her coping mechanism is just stupid. You wouldn't mistake her for a reader if you saw her. She's very pretty and feminine with a gorgeous figure and fabulous hair. She wears makeup, dresses fancy, and is a life of the party sort of girl. So I don't think I'm wrong when I say that she doesn't actually like reading at all. So to help her out, I hid a good chunk of her books to sort of test the waters. Some of them were really old and from when she was a child in her parents' house, and her favorite. I felt the experiment would be meaningless if I just hid a couple she wouldn't immediately notice even though she reads every day, so she checks her bookshelf every day. When she asked if I took them, she already looked so worried I told her that I threw them away to show her that she can be fine without them. She flipped out, threatened to leave, the whole works. I got angry and told her the truth and said that she was welcome to her shitty crutches because she had just lost her boyfriend over them. She just laughed and went to go find her books. I left the house. When I went back, she was giving me the silent treatment and at night asked me when I was planning on leaving because apparently we're over. I'm currently living on my best friend's couch who's saying that I messed up big time, but he's always kind of wanted to bang her, so I don't believe him. Am I the asshole for helping my girlfriend get over her trauma?
Storytime about how I got drunk at a party, confessed to my crush that I was in love with him, and he rejected me in front of everybody. Disclaimer is not my storytime. I was sending me on Instagram. All of this happened 3 years ago when I was in college. I'm painfully shy, and I had the biggest crush on this guy. We took some of the same classes, and I'm pretty sure he didn't even know I existed. My friends would constantly tell me to go talk to him, but I just didn't have the nerve. So sometimes I would just stare at him in class, nothing else. I actually even gave up on the thought of having a boyfriend because I'm just so shy. One of my classmates was having a party, and he was really nice. He invited everyone in the class and told us to show up with drinks. Oh yeah, and I don't tend to drink a lot, so I have no experience. I overheard my crush telling him that he was gonna go to the party, so I decided to go to the party too. The party was the following night, and I knew I wanted to look absolutely gorgeous charges to this party. So that same day, I went to get a new outfit, and I also went to get a mani-pedi. I even went as far as going to Sephora to get my makeup done. I don't really know how to do my makeup, and I actually don't even have much. So I show up to the party looking like $1,000,000, and literally nobody recognized me. I pretty much looked like a different person. And of course, the first thing I did when I got to the party was look for my crush. That's when I realized that I was definitely one of the first people there. Finally, one of my friends shows up and she convinces me to have a few drinks. She told me I needed to loosen up, especially before my crush arrived. I agreed and had a glass of wine. As soon as I finished that glass of wine, my crush walks in. And my plan was working because he started eyeing me right away. He even went up to my friend and asked me who I was. That's what she said. She's the girl that's in our class. He laughed it off and said, "Oh yeah, I know her name." And he didn't know my name. Like I said before, he had no idea I existed. He walks up to me and starts talking to me about class. Of course, I'm extremely shy, so I had no idea what to say. Out of nowhere, I just started talking back to him. I'm assuming it was the wine that loosened me up. I wasn't feeling super nervous. My palms were not sweaty, and we actually spoke for about 15 minutes. He asked me if I want a drink, and of course I said yes. And before I knew it, I had chugged another glass of wine. Out of nowhere, I just started telling him that I've had a crush on him for months. I told him that I would just stare at him in class, and that I never really had the courage to ever speak to him before. It was like the word vomit scene in Mean Girls. I just couldn't shut up. In my mind, I fully expected him to just be like, "Oh my god, I like you too." But instead, he quickly gets up and says, "You're joking, right?" And I say, "No, of course not." And he says, "Well, I have a girlfriend." And then I say, "No, you don't." And he said, "Yeah, I do. How do you know I don't?" "Because I've stalked you on social media and I know you're sleeping with half the girls in our class." He looks around at everyone standing nearby. Then he looks back at me and tells me, "Yeah, you're definitely crazy." He looks at my friend and tells her that she needs to take me home because I'm too drunk. That's when I grab his arm and ask him what's wrong. Honestly, I couldn't comprehend what was actually happening. He pulled his arm away really hard. He told me I was really creepy for telling him that I was staring at him in class and that I stalked him on social media. I quickly realized what I had just done. I confessed my feelings to my crush, and I also creeped him out at the same time. The next words that came out of his mouth still haunt me to this day. He said, and I quote, "I would never ever date a freak like you. It's obvious you've never had a boyfriend and you probably never will." And yeah, everyone at the party heard exactly what he said. I was mortified and couldn't speak. There I am, standing in my stupid dress, my makeup, and my hair, which I had spent like $400 on, all to end up looking like a fool. That's when my friend grabs my hand, pulls me out of the party, and takes me to my dorm. I curled up in bed and watched Netflix for the next 2 days. When I finally had to go back to class, there he was, and he literally just ignored me like I didn't even exist again. That's when I decided to turn my life around. I lost 30 pounds, and I started gaining the confidence that I never had. And guess what? As soon as I lost the weight and started dressing differently, my crush started talking to me. He would try to be casual about it, but then eventually I asked him if he didn't remember how he treated me at the party. He apologized and said that I had just made him feel uncomfortable. A few weeks after that conversation, he asked me out, but I said no. Fast forward to now. He DM'd me because we live in the same city and asked me out on a date. I said no again. I usually date 3 guys at a time. I've been proposed to 4 times and said no, but I'm kind of tempted to at least go on a date with him. What do you guys think? I mean, he's still kind of cute.
I was 24 when I met my SO 23 3 years ago. I never wanted kids, so we always used protection, but I guess shit happens and she ended up giving birth 6 months ago. I told her when she got pregnant that I wouldn't be waking up to do anything with the baby at night because I work. If I had to tune into waking up every time he cried, I never get any sleep. So she's been good with being the one waking up at night. Recently I got laid off for winter, and now that I'm home, she's acting like I should be waking up at night to help her. I don't think that's fair because I'll end up with the same problem I stated above. When I go back to work, I can't really afford to lose sleep. Now to the incident at hand. A few nights ago, my son was being particularly fussy at night. I ended up waking up while she was getting his chair. I guess it seemed he'd be up a while. She put him in the bed when she got up, so I scooted closer and cuddled him a bit. Almost looked like he might fall asleep. A few minutes go by and he starts fussing like crazy. I look around the room and my girlfriend is nowhere to be seen. Now I'll admit I did get angry. I was tired and it pissed me off that she just left like that. Sometimes when I get overly frustrated, I lash out at myself. This is where I think I might have been the asshole. I hit myself in the face a few times and said something I probably shouldn't have. My girlfriend came storming back upstairs with the baby monitor in her hand, saying she heard and saw the whole thing and that I was unbelievable. I spatted her that she wouldn't know what it's like to need sleep when you work because she's never worked hard a day in her life. She's never worked as hard as I do in my current job, but we did work 2 other places together before she got pregnant. But she hasn't worked in a little over a year. I think what I said was warranted. Anyway, she said she's not even sure if she wants to be with me anymore and has been giving me the silent treatment for 3 days, even though I said I was sorry. I don't want her to make my son a fatherless child. Am I the asshole for telling my SO she's never worked hard?
My 25 female stepsister, 23 female, is getting married to my ex, 26 male. We were close as any 2 sisters growing up. My mum and her dad met when we were 8 and 6, and we got along really well from the get-go. My ex-boyfriend broke up 2 years ago. He cheated on me. I found out about it a week after he proposed to me. 5 to 6 months later, stepsister told me that she and ex-boyfriend have started dating. I couldn't believe my ears. I was very angry at her, but the rest of my family, mum, stepdad, 2 half-sisters, didn't think it was a betrayal at all, and my mum once yelled at me to grow up and move on. I gradually distanced myself from stepsister without making a fuss. I just poured myself into my studies instead and hid behind the "I'm swamped" excuse. I started dating my current boyfriend, CB, 25 male, about 10 months ago. The only problem is that stepsister used to have this huge crush on him, and she still, to this day, texts and DMs him. They never dated. I haven't told anyone in my family that I'm seeing someone. Stepsister and ex-boyfriend got engaged, and they have sent the wedding invitations last month. Wedding in June. I didn't RSVP because I don't want to attend. Last week my mum asked me to visit. When I got there, my mum was waiting with stepsister, her BFF and maid of honour, my half-sisters and ex-boyfriend's sister. It was an intervention. My mum started by saying that I needed to stop alienating myself from everybody and get over the hurt. Stepsister is getting married and she wanted me as a bridesmaid. I told them no. Stepsister started crying, saying I'm ruining her wedding. She asked if it has to do with me not having a +1 because she could pair me with one of ex-boyfriend's single best men and I wouldn't feel lonely then. I got really angry and told her I didn't want to go to her wedding because I don't like her. She started crying again, calling me bitter and a hag for purposely wanting to hurt her on her big day. I left. My mum called me later saying if I didn't show up, at least as a guest, I'm cut off from the whole family. You see, they need me there so people see there's no hard feelings between us, and that I have blessed their marriage because she has been getting a whole lot of shit from family for what she did to me.